Hi, welcome back to another episode of Anyone Can Paint. This week we're going to start a brand new painting. If you come up here, I'll show you what we got. This is going to be like a farm scene. Up in our area in Michigan, we have a lot of pumpkin patches that are around the area, and this is going to end up being like a pumpkin farm. And these are not rocks. I know it disappoints you. I know. This is just to show you where the pumpkin's going to go. There's going to be more than that, but this kind of gives you a visual idea. In the background, we're going to have the sky up there. This is going to be some trees that are back in the background. There's going to be a little bit of a meadow or a field back there. Then we're going to work our way forward to do the bigger barn, a couple of buildings, and some bushes, bigger trees, and then eventually we'll get down to the actual pumpkin patch itself. So that's the plan. So we're going to start at the top as we always do, and we're going to get our sky in. So we're going to start with our large flat bristle brush. Remember, you want to get it wet first, then towel dry it off. And we're going to go into some white and just a touch of blue. Now remember that blue eats up white really quick, so you don't need very much of this. And we're just going to kind of put this around. The sky's a very simple sky. We're not doing a whole lot to it. I'll grab some more paint. I'll be right back. And I'm going to end up covering some of this. That's okay, because I want to get some of that color behind that anyways. So that was just to give you an idea of what was going on here. Now that I got some blue on there, now what I do is I come back with some just white, and I kind of soften some of this up. Again, you want to work that down so it goes back behind your tree line. Grab more white, I'll be right back. Obviously, you can make your sky to be whatever you like it to be. If you want it a little bit darker than this, please feel free to go right ahead. Again, I'm just bringing this down lower than my tree line is, so then when I put the tree line in, which we'll do next, it goes up over the edge and helps to kind of push the sky back, and you get that layering effect that we always talk about. Now, of course, if you've done this and it gets too light, just grab a little bit of blue, and you can always come back and you can incorporate a little bit more dark in there. But just remember to do this kind of sparingly, because that dark, or this blue, is so much darker, and it'll eat this all up. But as long as you got some wet white paint on there, it kind of helps to soften that in. I'm going to bring a little bit more up in that right-hand corner, darken this up a bit. There, just something simple. Then you don't have to clean out your brush, and we're going to go right into the underpainting for those background trees. And we're going to end up obviously covering some of this stuff up, but we're going to start working in the trees in our ground area. This is a combination of some blue and green, and you can see on my palette that I just grab that color and just stick it on there, and I don't blend it out, because you can actually just blend this right on the canvas, because you just need this to be a dark color. And it's okay if there's some areas that are bluer than green and greener than blue. But as you start to get this color going, you want to start turning your brush vertically. I'm going to put a little bit more green in there. There we go. And just tap this to get some interesting tree shapes. Now, I did fail to mention that this is going to be an autumn scene, so we're going to incorporate some nice little autumn colors back in these trees. Because be at that time of the year with pumpkins, it would definitely be in the fall. You know, I'm just turning my brush vertically and just tapping. Inside the body of the trees, this doesn't matter. This, of course, is going to mix with some of your sky, and it's going to turn a little bit lighter, and that's going to be okay. I'm going to grab some more paint, and I'll be right back. I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of work this in some layers. So I'm just going to bring this down to like about there, and then we'll work on that part first. There goes a barn. Just grabbing some more green and blue, and we'll be right back up. And a little bit over here. Now there's going to be a pretty large tree that goes in here, so some of this is going to get covered up. But again, at this stage of the game, you may not, even though you kind of maybe had sketched that part in like I did, maybe as you get going you decide that you don't want that tree to be that large. So if you don't overpaint this area, which I mean is that if you know that tree's going to go in there, maybe you just stop and don't bring any of this over. If that's what happens, then you're going to be kind of committed to make that tree that big in that shape. But if you just kind of work this over and just continue to do your trees, then as you work your way down in the painting and you get to this bigger one, you may change your mind and say, I really don't want one that big. Well, then it's going to be a good thing that you ended up painting in these trees over here then. But if you do decide to keep the large tree, then you're going to paint over some of these, and it was good practice anyway, so nothing lost. All right. And again, we're just going to do this in some sections here. So we'll go ahead and clean that brush out. Now when you're doing autumn colors, especially up here in Michigan and of course over in the Northeast, you get a lot of really vibrant colors sometimes. So let's talk a little bit about some color combinations that you could use in your trees. One thing you got to remember is that in the fall, greens are still around. So you don't feel like you have to go away from greens. Greens are still around. If you want to go, obviously there's oranges and there's reds and things like that. But you can also get into some colors which would be kind of like a goldish color. And the colors you use for that is going to be yellow with a little bit of burnt sienna, and that will give you a gold color. Orange, sometimes I use orange. I usually will mix it with maybe a little bit of red or a little bit of yellow, but if you don't have orange and you do have red, you obviously red and yellow will make orange. And that's kind of nice because you can get that to the color of orange that you want. You can do a washed out orange. You can get it to be a true orange just by how much red you want to put in there. But keep in mind that as you're mixing these colors, is that you always want to start with your lightest color out of the two colors that you're going to use. You want to start with your lightest. So if I was going to use, for example, yellow and red to make an orange, let's say, I want to start with yellow and then incorporate a little bit of red into that color, because the darker color, and it doesn't matter what colors you're talking about, the darker of the two is always going to eat up that lighter color. So you want to predominantly always start with your lighter color and just keep adding the darker color in as you need it to get whatever tint that you want to do. But don't start with your dark color, because it's going to take 3 times as much light to change that to get it to where you want. And then you end up with a big pile of paint. Now you've wasted a lot of money. Then you end up with a pile of paint, especially with a color that you may not need that much of. So let's go up, and I tried not to put this on very thick so it would dry a little quicker. So let's see if we can get a little lucky here. Now, you can do this one of two ways. You can do your trees first if you can in your mind visualize how far down you want to bring your trees. But remember, we have a little bit of a field that's back in here too. So wherever you incorporate that back here, above that are going to be your tree line. So you can do your trees first if you want, and then put in your underpainting or your highlights for your field. Or you can do the opposite. Put in your field first, highlight that, and then what's above your field are going to be the tree line. So whatever is easier for you. I usually will do the field first, and then I can get that as wide as I want whatever's left over are for the trees. Also remember that the higher up you paint on your trees, the smaller you're going to make them, thus they're going to look further away in your painting and give you more distance. So I know it's a lot to keep in mind, but it can really change how your painting looks, and it's not right or wrong one way or the other, but it'll certainly look different. You'll just make those trees look like they're closer, and maybe that's not that big of a thing. So even though it's a little bit wet, I'm going to try and put this the field in first. I'm just going to grab some yellow, especially knowing that this is a bit wet yet. So as I put this in, you can see right away that it already makes the tree line. And you can bring this down to here, you can bring it up higher, again, wherever you want this to be. Again, because that underpainting's still wet, I'm going to have to keep dipping into some yellow here. And this line can be whatever you want this to be. This can be hilly and roly-poly if you'd like. It's totally up to you. It can go straight across. But as you're applying this, you want to make sure, again, like I tell you all the time when you're putting on highlights, you don't want to cover up all of your underpainting. You need some of that dark to show through. That's what helps give shadows in the ground, like maybe there's some low areas. But it's really important that those show through. Now I'm going to have to go back and work over this. And usually when you're doing highlights in the field like this, it's a little bit of a process anyways, because you've got to get some paint down first. Then you can always go back and start incorporating some new and other colors. Plus my underpainting is still a little wet. So I'm just going to continue to work this out. Then we're going to go back in. We'll kind of enhance this a little bit. Sometimes I scrub pretty hard to get more paint on. Sometimes I do it lightly so I can get some of the underpainting to show through. And now I'm going to go back with some yellow and see if we can enhance some of this. Now, whenever in a field you want to get that look of some distance, what you want to do is always focus on getting some contrast. Contrast is putting a light color against a dark or a dark against a light. Every time you do that, that will help trick the eye to think that there's some distance, especially when you're talking about a field. So we've kind of got that basically put in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and add a little bit of depth to this. So you do that by making some areas a little bit lighter. And then you just work that color down. And of course, this being wet, you have to hit this a little thicker. But you can see right there how I made this little hill. It's lighter color than what that is, and it kind of makes it look like it pushes that back, and it just adds another layer of distance in there. And anytime you can do that, you're going to help get that look of distance. It's like right here, for example, I just kind of accidentally did this, but if I wanted to bring this little bit of a hill out, I make that brighter. And as long as it stands out against what's behind it. Now, if this was dry, it would even be better, but you can see here, that's lighter than right there, that's lighter than there, that's lighter as you go back and back. So I got multiple layers here. I'm just grabbing some more yellow as I come down. But hopefully you can see that layering that happens. And that just happens automatically by just first putting this on. And you know, we've talked about yellow being such a transparent color. And to get yellow to retain its brightness, and it's really deceiving because on your palette, it looks really bright because there's a volume of it. But you have to go back and put layers and layers on it before it really starts to stay a brighter color. So we can clean out your brush after you've got that in. And one of the things I've talked to you about often, when you have a painting that's got a lot of green in it, sometimes it's nice, I think, if you add a little bit of burnt sienna to it, and it just kind of knocks down all that green. Now, we're going to have other colors in here, but I'll give you an example of what that looks like. You just get a little bit of burnt sienna, not very much. And you just want to lightly put some of this in. And of course, with this being wet, it's not going to show up very well. Let me see if I can get some back here. And again, it just kind of takes away all the greens and yellows and just brings a warmer color into this. And just kind of scatter this around. But again, it goes right back to what I just mentioned earlier with this contrast thing. You got some lights and darks, and you just kind of put this in, just kind of here and there. You can see it just kind of breaks that color up a little bit. It adds a little bit to it. If you're not a burnt sienna type person and don't want to do that step, then just forget that part. We're going to clean it out again. And here's where you can go in, and we're talking about those fall colors again. Now, I had mentioned in another painting that eventually, the more often you paint, the more you're going to wear down the bristles of your brushes, just because of the techniques that I use. And I'll give you an example. And it's a good thing to hold on to them sometimes. Now, I'm going to show you the same size brush that it was at one time. Now, these two brushes were the same. But you can see that the one on your right is pretty worn down. Now, you may think like, well, I'm just going to pitch that thing, but those really have a really good purpose for them. Obviously, it's tough to do some of the techniques because there's only half the bristles there. But what it really is good for is by putting highlights of leaves and bushes and trees. It's good for doing grasses and things because the bristles are shorter and broken off, that they're a little stiffer. So they tend to hold their shape, and it's really good for doing little pouncing and things like that. So you want to still get it wet. So when you've worn down a brush, just don't throw it out. You don't need to keep every one of these that you have, but it's good to have a couple of them hanging around. So now we're going to go through and start putting in some fall colors. This is where you want to incorporate and just get kind of creative. So I'm going to start with some yellow and maybe a touch of red. And I don't overblend this sometimes, just so I get different color combinations. And I just tap my brush into it directly like that. And it's really important that you do that, because at the end of your bristles, you'll get an even distribution of paint. Plus, you'll see that it opens your bristles up a little bit, and that's really what you want to do. Now, up here on the canvas, our light is going to be coming in on the left-hand side in this canvas, or in this painting. So you want to focus on, as you're putting these clumps of leaves in, you want to kind of focus on putting them on the right-hand side and then working back within your tree. And just like I tell you every single time about anything you highlight, don't cover up all your dark. You need that dark to make it look three-dimensional. So I'm just going to start here. We're going to do all those trees, but I'm just going to start right there. Again, focus on putting most of your highlights on the left-hand side, and it's just going up and just directly tapping into this and keeping your brush moving. And see how the little darks are in there? It kind of helps make that look three-dimensional. It's really important that you do that. And see, by not over blending my color, you get these little accident things that happen a little bit more yellow. There's a little bit reddish orange that's caused. And just kind of work that down towards your grass. All right, now we come down. Now if you want, you can clean out your brush. to get new colors. Sometimes if you just keep mixing colors, sometimes it gets kind of a little on the yucky side though. This time I'm just going to go into some pure red. Maybe I'll add a little bit of orange to that. We'll just see how that works. Again, I'm just going to tap my brush into that. And maybe we'll do this one right here will be this color. Again, hold your hand back on your handle. Just go in and tap. And keep your brush moving. Oops, a little thick. You know, maybe I should do a thick one. Just show you how you can change that. Let's do it there. Let's do a thick blob. And I'll show you how you can correct that. I'm going to clean out the brush. Now I'm going to switch to a new color. Maybe I'll do like that yellow and some burnt sienna, the gold color. You can just tap your brush into that color. Don't feel like you have to overblend it. And let's do this one here. And I don't mean to be going every other one, but it's kind of easier for you to see at home if everything's dark around it, and this really will stand out. But just light taps. Now you can always, it seems like I don't have much burnt sienna in there, you can always go back in and reload and just work that color back into there. See how important all the darks are? That really helps to get that three-dimensional look. It's really, really important. I'm going to grab some yellow and put that into that same color we just used. And I have no idea what this is going to look like. Let's do this one over here. And in between your trees, you want to allow a little bit of dark so it kind of sees a little separation between the two. All right, I'm going to clean out my brush just so I can get fresh color. Now maybe I'm going to go into a light green color. So I'm going to get some yellow and some green. Maybe we'll put that one right in here. We'll see how this goes up against this other one. That's not too bad. Now, I didn't do this to this canvas because I just now realized it. But you can see how there's a bounce to this? This is a canvas that's got the wooden support on the back. One of the ways that you can get rid of this bounce, if that bothers you, and it kind of bothers me sometimes, is that on this side of your canvas is already primed with gesso, which is the primer that is always put on raw canvas. So that's all sealed. However, the back side is still raw canvas. If before you start painting, if you get your spray bottle and just spray the back side of this, and just spray it pretty good, and then let that dry, this does not have much bounce, and what happens is it shrinks the canvas, and you can almost go like this. You hear it like a drum, and it'll go boom, 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 because it gets tighter. So don't ask me to do that sound again. You can go ahead and clean out your brush. Now we'll go down and we will choose some other colors. Let's go into some green and a little bit of orange. We'll see what that does. And let's put this one over here. Again, light touches. And you can see those are certainly autumn colors, but they're a little bit more muted. They're a little bit subdued. They're not really bright. All right, and I'm going to grab some more yellow, and we'll lighten that up. We'll see what that does. Now we'll put this one, let's put this one over here. And we're not going to be able to finish these trees up today. But when we meet next week, we're going to come back and we'll finish those. Maybe we'll re-highlight this, and then we'll just continue to start working down the camp. But when you're doing these trees, just kind of play around with these colors. Now, sometimes you're going to come up with a color that you just absolutely hate. Just let that dry, and you can go right back over it. It's not a big deal. All right, I'm going to clean this out. And again, this is about as far as we're going to get today. We appreciate you watching, and I hope you enjoy this one. Again, this is going to be something a little bit different, doing the old pumpkin farm. It's going to be a lot of fun, getting into some more of the buildings and things. But thank you so much for watching. We really, really appreciate you taking out your time. We'll see you again next week, and remember, you can do this. Anyone can paint.